the definition of learning disabilities, like all academics, you have to have several definitions at once. Makes us look smarter. Right? So first, a learning disability is recognized by medical health professionals as a neurobiological disorder of the cognitive and or language processing caused by atypical brain function. And so the medical world looks at this as something's going on with the brain. It's not the pistons are not firing right. The spark plugs are not working as they should. Others define it as, although debates continue over the definition, there seems to be a rather strong agreement that one maker of learning disability is the presence of an unexpected underachievement. That is, a child fails to achieve on an expected level. And so what the Department of Education, the way they define learning disabilities, is that you may have a child with an average or above average IQ, and they're performing pretty well across the board, but in one area they may dip. And so that's the definition that most states are using to classify learning disabilities. So that child may be strong in mathematics, may be strong in PE, but dips when it comes to writing. And so, and it's a various dip, it's not just it's a big thing. Last definition, learning disability is a general term that refers to a heterogeneous group of disorder manifested by specific difficulties in the acquisition and use of listening, speaking, writing, reasoning, or mathematical abilities. So when we think about when these things show up in our classrooms, when they show up in our elementary schools, high schools, and higher and colleges and universities. And so you find there's a difficulty in listening, and it's pretty much the external world. The whole interaction of the external world is a little different.
So he gave the elaborate definition of learning disability. I want to see if I can dilute it just a little bit for. So a learning disability is something that you do not outgrow, which is very strange because as you move tiers between elementary, middle school, high school, college, for some reason they want to test you over and over again. If you were tested in elementary school and diagnosed, it doesn't go anywhere. Then you find ways to cope with it. You find different coping mechanisms, but you don't outgrow a learning disability. A learning disability is not dependent on IQ. Okay? A learning disability also has no cure. Once again, we kind of find interesting ways, especially when you get intelligent, you find ways to camouflage your learning disability, but it is not cured. You can't take a special pill to cure your learning disability. A learning disability it often appears inconsistent, and that's because, as Mr. Prosper stated, you may be very strong in multiple disciplines, and you have this drastic dip in just one. So then teachers are a little bit concerned. This child does exceptionally well in 5 out of 6 classes. What could this be? So they appear inconsistent, or the learning disability may appear to lie dormant for a certain amount of time. You may go into remission. Is that fair for me to say? Okay, seemingly through the middle school and high school, and then resurface again at the college level. And a learning disability is very, very frustrating. I don't have the words to express how frustrated a learning disability can be, because people see you and you speak well and you look well and you execute well in most areas except one. So it can be very frustrating. So then we spend most of our time as persons with learning disabilities trying to prove that our disabilities are a handicap. Does that make sense? So I spend a lot of my academic time trying to prove it as opposed to someone trying to assist. Does that make any sense? Because the learning disabilities that I have and Mr. Prosper has are invisible.
And they're not a derivative of a cognitive delay. So we often think people with learning disabilities are unintelligent, or they may not have the same intelligence as a so-called normal kid, and we'll talk about that. So it doesn't mean that somebody, because they have a learning disability, they're not intelligent. It's not emotional disorder, oftentimes. I mean, it could seem that way because you get so frustrated, but it's not a emotional disorder. It's not a result of poor teaching. or it's not a result of a lack of motivation. But through that time when that child is trying to figure out what's going on, motivation does change. Emotions does flare. And so oftentimes people get misdiagnosed of what those things are. And it's not cultural. It's not specific for each cultural. And we're finding that, and we're having a hard time to find out the genetics of it, even if it runs in families or not.